Twin brothers convicted of murder. But did they actually commit this vicious crime? Today we're tackling the case of 19-year-old twin brothers Jared and Gerald Smith and the death of an innocent Samaritan named Nathan Halstead. Our story begins in the early morning of Monday, June 30th, 2014, in the city of Fresno, California, of the San Joaquin Valley. It was very dark outside. It was around 3 a.m. when a young woman by the name of Tennille Alexander made her way through the practically empty streets of Fresno. She stopped to wait at a nearby bus stop. A short while later, a man in a pickup truck came rolling down the street. He slowed down and pulled over at the bus stop right next to Alexander. Alexander was very hungry at this point, and she thought maybe this man in the truck would take her to get her something to eat. So she climbed in the truck with him and they headed down the road. The two chatted in the truck for a bit, but unfortunately, he did not propose that the two of them get a meal together or even a snack. He only propositioned her for. So again, Alexander said no and declined the offer. The man pulled his truck over to the side of the road. Alexander got out of the truck at the corner gas station of Belmont and Calaveras in the Tower District. She began walking back toward the next bus stop. This is where Alexander was approached by the 19-year-old twin brothers, Gerald and Jared Smith. The twins, Gerald and Jared, had supposedly been out all night and all morning, wandering the streets of Fresno. Obviously, they were up to no good. These boys had one mission in mind that night. That mission, trying to start as many fights as possible with literally anyone who dared to come near them. Alexander saw the twins and tried to ignore them and walk right past them, but she wasn't so lucky. One of the twins walked right up to Alexander, blocking her path. Alexander could see rage in his eyes. He demanded she give him money. The other twin was originally hesitant, being that Alexander was female, and even made a very poor attempt to get his brother to stop and leave this woman alone. But his brother proceeded to rile her up and demand that she give them money. Alexander was frightened, but tried to hold her ground. She told the twins she's not a prostitute and didn't have any money to give them. The twin was very upset by her response. He grew enraged and began attacking her in the gas station parking lot. The other twin quickly joined in right behind him and began beating up this girl. The two were monsters, really, truly just brutal to Alexander. That's when a good Samaritan by the name of Nathan Halstead was casually riding his bike down the street. He spotted the awful scene unfolding in front of him and decided to intervene. Halstead rushed to Alexander's aid, jumped off of his bike, and then tried to pull the twins off of her and stop the attack. The twins ditched Alexander and then diverted their attention from Alexander to Halstead. They began punching, kicking, and stomping on Halstead. Meanwhile, Alexander runs away and gets the hell out of there. Gerald and Jared brutally beat Halstead for several minutes, the fight moving from the parking lot of the gas station to the sidewalk and then out into the middle of the street and taking up 2 lanes. Eventually, from the beatings, Halstead collapsed unconscious in the middle of the road and the brothers took off. They fled the scene and made their way home. They just left him there in the middle of the street. Halstead just laying there helpless. It was around 3 a.m., so the streets were relatively empty, but as you can imagine, at some point, cars were driving on this road. A white car drove by during the altercation. The car slowed down to almost a complete stop, wanting to slow down to help the young woman in trouble. The twins walked towards the car. They attempted to open the door and hit the car and was banging on it. Luckily, the driver's doors were locked, so they didn't get it open, and they sped away unharmed. So Alexandra had run off. Gerald and Jared fled the scene. Nathan Halstead was left there alone. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before another car came speeding down the street, and this car did not slow down. Tragically, this car did not see the unconscious man, Nathan Halstead, lying on the ground. The car ran him over and ended his life. Emergency medical services arrived at the scene of the crime as quick as they could, but it was too late. They pronounced Nathan Halstead dead. But this is where things get a little sticky. Is the person who ran over Nathan Halstead really responsible for this death? Or is Gerald and Jared Smith responsible for this death? Because they're the ones who put Halstead into such a horrible state, rendering him unconscious in the middle of the road where he was susceptible to harm. Like, yes, the driver should have spotted the body and not run over him, but Halstead wouldn't have been in the road if it wasn't for Jared and Gerald. Seems like a no-brainer to me, but not to Gerald and Jared's mom. Their mom, Luann Smith, said in multiple interviews that they're completely innocent and that the driver of the car is the one responsible. She said her boys were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sounds like their mother is doing exactly what any other mother would do. She's protecting her kids at all costs, even though they are awful humans. Meanwhile, the authorities disagree with these claims, as did the rest of the world. I'm just saying. Chief Jerry Dyer was interviewed and stated that this is not the driver's fault. He did not. The people who are responsible for this are Gerald and Jared Smith, who were the ones that beat this victim and allowed him to be run over and killed. The officer has also commented on the scene after viewing the security footage and said they were like animals pursuing prey. That's what they were. If one person walked by, they went after them. They were ruthless. So how did Gerald and Jared get busted for these crimes? In a few ways, actually. Yo, get this. The whole incident was caught on a security camera. Yes, there was a security camera across the street, just regular old traffic cameras. So on the tape, you can clearly see Gerald and Jared Smith walk up and attack Alexander at a gas station. Nathan Halstead is cruising on his bike. He makes his way over the 4 lanes and gets off his bike to help the victim. Then the twins drop what they're doing with Alexander and proceed to attack Halstead. You can clearly see them carrying the fight out from the gas station out into the street before running away. The twins' attorney, Daljit Rakar, tried to argue in court that the security footage was too grainy to correctly identify the suspects as Gerald and Jared Smith. Alexander did identify her attackers, as well as acknowledge the bravery of Nathan Halstead rushing to help her. She's quoted saying, "If it wasn't for that man who rolled by on a bike, I would have died." And she's not wrong. On top of that, the authorities tested for fingerprints on the car that drove past the scene that the twins then tried to target and attack. Remember when they tried to open that random person's car door? Well, they left behind their fingerprints. And thankfully, the person who drove by came forward and told authorities what they saw and brought the car in to get tested. Testing confirmed the prints belonged to none other than Gerald and Jared Smith. So all the evidence is stacked against Gerald and Jared Smith, but somehow it took like 5 years to officially reach a verdict and a sentencing. The crime was committed in 2014. The trial started in 2015, but the hearing went on and lasted until July 23rd, 2019. Eventually, the boys admitted to the crime, probably because there was really no way to deny it at this point. They were convicted and sentenced to prison for 12 years. The judge set their bail at $1.1 million. The twins were only 18 or 19 years old at the time they committed the crime in 2014. They were sentenced to prison in July 2019, and they're eligible for parole in 2032, which is coming up, y'all. That's just too soon. What do you guys think about this one? Do you think Jared and Gerald are responsible for the death of Nathan Halstead? Or do you think the person that ran Nathan Halstead over with the vehicle is responsible? Let me know what all of you guys think in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. I'm Brandi, and this has been Killer Bites. Let us know if there are any crimes you'd like us to cover in the next episode.